Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tech Sharmit podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce another special guest, Bobby Small, a Microsoft MVP with a larger than life personality joining us from United States. If I talk more about Bobby's expertise, then he is a true tech expert who is always at the forefront for the community initiatives as well as contribution. So today in this episode, we are going to talk about Bobby's multifaceted career and his exciting AI experiments. But before that, I would like to thank Bobby for joining us today in this episode. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us something about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, number one. I really appreciate the opportunity to engage the community all across the globe. I think that's one of the most exciting things about what I'm doing now is getting to exercise this community aspect of what I've done for so long. So really appreciate being here, being able to share my journey, being able to share what the community is and what's possible through this industry and what I've done. So again, excited to be here with you.
Okay. So, Bobby, we will start from the very basic itself, from the very beginning itself, I would say, because we all know that in industry you are known as a someone who is who is consistently contributing for the IT community and for your tech expertise. You are popular among the IT folks. But I notice one thing that you often describe yourself as a short guy with a tall personality. So, which gives a something interesting to everyone to know more about you, why this philosophy come in your mind. So, please start with that only and just let us know about this philosophy.
You bet. Yeah. So, right off the bat, because we're on Zoom and you can't see, I am an extremely short person. So for a male, I'm 5'2", and as you mentioned, my name is Bobby Small. So growing up with the last name Small at 5'2", it puts you in a position to really really find a way to find the humor in that, and that developed my humor and my sensibility at an early age. So that kind of brought that forward, and it really created, I think, what I often get, when you describe what I bring to a situation is really it's energy. It's the energy, and I think that started with that idea that I had to, kind of address and own this part of myself that otherwise could have been a detriment. And bringing that tall personality in, was just kind of the side effect. Um, and it's all coupled and rolled into just a solid work ethic that I developed. My dad owns or owned a residential paving company. So paving driveways, asphalt work through the summer, and just kind of silently and quietly taught me work ethic. From the smallest task up had to be done with perfection. So being able to roll that up alongside of the silliness, the combination of having my height and my name, just kind of created this what I'll call the short guy with a tall personality, and not in a sometimes you hear it in a negative way, but not in a negative way. I don't try to come across as like I'm the I better step up because I'm short. It's more just kind of developed over time in a soft way, but has certainly a big part of my personality.
That is really very good thing, I would say, because the way you take this thing, because we all know that body parameter or something like this is not in our hand, right? Despite
Right.
of this, we are doing so much great. In fact, the kind of work you are doing is not even considered, because it hardly matters, right? These kind of things are hardly matters. And for sure, like I'm sure like those who are around you, those who already know you, they know the big impact that you have created in the IT industry with your expertise. So that really matters. And like it's sometimes like I feel that this kind of discussion is not that comfortable for everyone to discuss with. But how you take this as a challenge as well as a opportunity, because you are not taking it as a challenges, you are just taking it as a another thing that inspired you to more to do more for the industry. So that is really very inspiring. And like you are the perfect example that how a work can be how a person can contribute a lot in the industry apart from their professional network. So that is
You
a
bet.
really good thing. All right, so let's go proceed with further thing because we wanted to know more about your tall personality in the IT industry. So let's start. Let's go back to the Dateline Colorado 2003. So just those who are not familiar, let's start with the Axapta first. Like what
Yeah.
exactly the Axapta, and how did you fall into the love for Axapta? So that we wanted to know.
Yeah, so I've been on the East Coast for, it's where I grew up, and decided to take on a career for the first time in my life that I wanted to do. So I was, had not gone to college. I made the move to where I am now in Colorado with the intent to go to college and get a degree. And it turns out that by the time it came to choose that, chose IT and information systems. It just felt like it fit my personality. I love to problem solve. I started was starting to get into technology and owning a computer, working on computers personally. So I thought this could be a fun career. And so I went back or went to college, got my degree, and got my first job right out of college for the most part at a company that was just in the process of switching ERP systems from JD Edwards to something. They didn't know yet, so they were in that process of interviewing, and they chose and landed on Navision. What was called then as Navision Axapta. Now we now know it as Dynamics F and everything. It's got all every finance, operations, supply chain, project, all these different pieces to it. But then it was just known as Axapta, and it
Okay.
was a main ERP system. And the one reason that our company chose it was for its customability. And so my degree had been in programming, but because of the job market, I took a job as a tech support role just to get my foot in because that's the way I operate in life. It's like sometimes you just got to take the opportunity and then mold it and make it yours. And so was kind of happy to have learned that philosophy early on. Like, it wasn't the perfect role for me, but I knew that I would get in and start to make my mark and work my way through it. So took Exapta to its next iteration of AX and eventually pretty quickly became a programmer. And I will say it was definitely a love-hate relationship with those earlier versions. It always is. This is a complicated product that we deal with. I loved a lot about it. I loved, some of the things that I developed over the course of this time, strong business analysis, project management. I learned all this with being able to be exposed to this kind of a perfect time of an ERP system that had this ability to customize, a company that needed customization, and a company small enough to allow me that opportunity to be able to learn and grow at my pace and to help the company. So it really was just kind of perfect timing. And I did fall in love with the idea of and also the idea of community through this opportunity as well. It wasn't long after that I started leading a local community or of peer sharing and networking. So it kind of opened up all this for me. It opened up this ability to learn how to do analysis, to project manage, to customize, business process, and to how community fit in all this.
Okay. All right. And while exploring bit about your professional journey, I found that you have had many career personalities like techie, analyst, director, networker, even a rock star. So, which one do you wake up as the most often these days?
That's a good question. I'd say that to be honest and to be fair, I'm kind of a whirling dervish, if you've heard of that term, a tornado of all of these that are kind of omnipresent, and it's really tapping into what part I need at that moment. Like that's kind of it's been a fun part of my personality that I love is that regardless of where I am, I can quickly pivot to a really technical conversation, a really silly conversation. Get into analysis. It's like my brain has been conditioned to be able to really pivot quickly, and so I rely on a lot of these kind of all the time. Just got back from a conference in Germany, and sometimes it was talking about community, sometimes it was talking about nonsense, and sometimes if the person wanted to talk tech, I can move right into that too. So I think it's always kind of present. And so I don't necessarily wake up, today as a tech day or today as a, analysis day. It's kind of just moving through the day and tapping into each of these learned skills, as I need them. And like a puppeteer, to be honest, it's like, it's like just kind of behind the scenes, just pulling the strings of whatever part of me that I need.
Okay. So what you think, like these kind of transition is smooth for you? Because like working as an analyst and then suddenly taking other role and taking responsibility of those things. So was it a smooth transition for you, or now you are used to it?
I would say that it's again, it was learned. I think there's something to say, but there is something inherent too. One thing that I've always been good at is what I would call true multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think multitasking is literally doing 10 things at one time, but in
Yes.
my opinion, true multitasking is be able to do 10 things simultaneously,
Correct.
with and being able to shift between them, like, oh, I'm coding over here and now I'm talking to this person and then I'm writing an email, but then I'm back to coding and not losing my place in all of it, not
Correct.
losing traction. And so I've again, been able to do this really well. I don't know if that was something that I've sat down to actually learn. It evolved over time, and part of it is, I think, a person's inherent nature to be able to handle and comprehend that kind of activity. But the other side is learned, being able to rely on your expertise and trust it and move through that. I think that does take time to develop. Just yeah, it is a skill set that you develop over time. And so it's not something I think about now. It's something that just happens naturally. But and even in the moment, I don't think I thought about it a lot. It just also just kind of developed and got stronger and stronger as I
Hmm.
did more of it. I think that the key development piece is just putting yourself into opportunities that allow you to do it, putting yourself into networking opportunities, putting yourself into opportunities to talk to customers and help them analyze a process and improve it. Just all those little pieces, just continuing to build those muscles up as you go through your career and your daily life.
Yes, and that is why like I asked this question, because it's not that easy for everyone to do these kind of roles simultaneously. As you
Yeah.
mentioned, that doing 10 thing different separately is a different thing, but doing at a time all those 10 things is not that easy for everyone. So hats off to you to taking all those responsibility at a time. All right. So, Bobby, nowadays we all know that everyone is talking about AI, and everywhere is AI. Everyone is using AI as a tool and as applications, right? So, what do you think? Like, what excites you the most about working with AI, and specifically with Copilot? Because you have good expertise with Copilot as well. So, what do you think? What is the most exciting thing for you?
To me, this. I mean, it's such a. I mean, it's just a broad, like you said. I'm, almost, it's like a lack of words almost. I'm amazed to be at a time. This is like being, to me, this is like being, in the 70s, sitting alongside Bill Gates and Steve Jobs.
Hmm.
We're in a time of technical revolution, and we're in it. Like it's, you got
Yes.
to wonder, like, did they realize they were in this genesis of technical revolution back in the 70s when they were creating personal computing and building this industry. We're here very similarly at this time where we're watching this unfold in front of us, and to see it happening real time to me is incredible. The possibilities, when you ask like what's what I'm looking forward to, it's really what we don't know yet. I mean, we're
Hmm.
scratching the surface. I feel like, there's obviously a lot of stuff going on, in media, in our industry, people talking about, is it going to take jobs? Is it already taking jobs?
Yeah.
It's still at its infancy, in the point where I feel like we're really, really strong enhancers of this technology. Copilot AI still needs smart people like you and I and many others in our industry to guide this, to help us understand it more. It's not, I don't think, nearly ready for, this kind of next level, thought of it's taking over, it's going to take all the jobs. It's still, there's too much for us to learn about what it can do.
Yeah.
Um, so the possibility to me is immense, and that's one thing that I'm keeping my eye on the pulse, just to kind of see where it's going. But to your kind of roll back to your point, One of the the joys I think of being awarded MVP this year was to give me the ability to get a little bit deeper tool set that I didn't have access to, and to get some space and some opportunity with peer sharing and working with in these playgrounds with these intelligent people that are also MVPs and outside that realm to start to experiment and figure out what my path in this and what I can contribute. So that's kind of where my brain is right now, is like just got past some major community stuff that I work on, and now have this open space to really get in and start to play around with Copilot Studio and start to present some ideas based on my experience and things where I could think I can lend value. And I also, my creative side, the other side of me that's on the wackier fringe, is looking forward to some maybe some a fun project or two that I won't mention now, but just maybe a 26 project where just something fun to add to the AI world, and for folks in general using AI and Copilot.
So, is there any specific project that you build for your own? Let's say if there is any day-to-day tasks. So, like, are you utilizing any of the AI tool in order to do those day-to-day tasks?
Nothing at this point, but one of my goals is to look at our organization, look at the community, and look at
Hmm.
what value I can provide in within it's kind of blending that level of tech expertise I have, bringing it to the community in a way that can provide some value to what we're doing at a local and regional and national level to build stronger and brighter, more passionate community, for sharing, networking, and education. So I am, that is, one of the focuses that where I will be, putting my attention as I look at, what the possibilities are, and matching those to what I'm hearing from our community members and what they want in their daily interactions within the community.
Okay. So, Bobby, we all know that this AI tool is used by many folks in order to get some definitions. And during the research, I also found one interesting thing, or I would say the interesting term, that is noodling or noodling. So, what's your definition of it? Because maybe most of those who don't know you, they might not know about this term which you often use. So could you please let us know like what exactly this term is for you and how
Yeah.
does it translate into result at work?
So yeah, not I didn't coin the term, but it's been around, and to noodle means to think on something.
Yes.
And so it's just a fun way of saying I'm going to think about this. I'm going to noodle it around. And for me, everybody's got their own, space in which they noodle.
Right.
Um, my noodle space is, I would say, if you stepped inside of my noodle space, it's a pretty crazy space. And the way I like to do this and to really generate ideas and opportunities and things that I think are going to improve, propel, create, is to not have guardrails, is to
Mm-hmm.
not have anything. It's just thoughts. So a great example, I just got back from Germany, went to a conference there a week and a half ago or so. So at about an 8 hour flight back and forth. And part of that time I slept on the way over. On the way back, I was not. It was in the midday, and so just kind of put myself in a space of thinking. And so to me, that's the way I noodle best. It's like just, clear any, there's no rules. Just get in there and let ideas fly and start writing them down. And if I put myself in a space like this for a couple of hours, and I do it best, by the way, for me personally, like if I it's the morning time, the very first hour of being awake, literally sometimes while I'm laying in bed, just kind of waking up, my brain is just on fire. And so I'll start thinking about everything, and it could pertain to something I'm working on. It could pertain to something that's totally a non sequitur that just
Mm-hmm.
cropped up. But the key for me is not having any restrictions on my thought. And then I can take these hundreds of noodles that I've created and take them to my team and say, here's 100 things I think we could do. Let's, you tell me which ones are worth taking to the next level. And then we pick out maybe the one or two or three things that really say, hey, this is a great idea. We should run with this, and then move those forward through the process. But it is just a volume of ideas sometimes that I just create that again, sometimes they're so fringe that you're like, yeah, we can never do that. Sorry, but it was funny to talk about, but it's never going to happen to something that's a reality that just wouldn't have been thought of otherwise. So that's kind of my, kind of the best way I can describe the way I go about this process is just it's 100% wide open, green field, no restrictions, and then, and then no, and also the key too is not being offended when somebody, looks at one of your noodles and goes, "Yeah, that's awful." You're just like, "Yeah, you're right." I mean, they're not all good. Everything I think isn't right, and everything I think isn't perfect. So, being able to be resilient when you're talking these things through with people, so that some things are going to land, some are not, and that's part of the creative process when you're working with a team, which is in my opinion, the best way to work. I could do this on my own, but my best ideas and my best things have come from a nugget of an idea that gets expanded through discussion with smart people. So that's kind of where I like to land that. And if I had to describe it, define it, that's the way I would do it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now, Bobby, we will talk bit about your current responsibility at DUG. So, what is your current mission at DUG and how does it tie with all your passions together?
Yeah. So like I said, so it's been about at this point uh, close to whew, 14 years in the community,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 15 years in the community. And, like I mentioned, my career path went from tech support,
Yes.
kind of, mastered the hardware software side of IT, went to programming, and then for a bulk of my career, I was directing the IT department at an apparel company here in Colorado. And so really got to know dynamics, got to know the tech side of myself um, really intimately. But I also, got introduced to this great community that was evolving at the time to support folks in dynamics and to support, um, you know, peer sharing and education. And so quickly jumped into this leadership role locally as a community leader here in Colorado to put on regular meetings, help at the national level with national meetings through programming committees. And so this kind of started this desire to be a part of and I'd always been this way too. I mean, I'd already started to develop a philanthropic nature. At the
Mm-hmm.
company I worked at, I started and fostered an organizational piece called Your Ray of Hope, which was giving back to our internal employees, giving back to the community locally. So driving events through our organization to give back. So it's kind of already starting this process in my life, and so there's just an extension of it in my professional life to be able to do this as well. And it was last year that and all this I left the end user, by the way, just to kind of
Okay.
fully flesh it. So I just before the pandemic had decided I wanted to move on. I'd been there almost 20 years. Felt like I kind of ran the gamut, but kind of hit the end of that runway of what I could do for them and what they wanted from me. So I felt like it was time to move on. And I ended up at an implementation partner. Luckily, they were big community advocates, so I kept that community piece and even grew it through efforts. And it wasn't until last year that I was attending a meeting, and it was a meeting of mostly Business Central users,
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft's Business Central finance system product. My experience was in F&O and Axapta, as we talked about,
Yes.
but I found that I was able to help almost every person there in some way with questions, answers. I just had started to get more cursory knowledge of the entire ecosystem that I didn't know I had. And I was like, wow, this is exciting to me. I love being able to help all these people. I want to step outside the bounds of this. And it kind of started me thinking about how can I do this full time? And that led me to reaching out and kind of creating this opportunity for myself just by asking, you know, is there any space for me to be in the community as a community advocate and strategist to do and to answer what your question is to at the end of the day recruit more people. I mean, gosh, we see thousands of people at events, but excuse me, but that's just a small percentage of the people that are using the software and using the Power
Yes.
Platform and using AI and Copilot now. So how do I reach more of these people? How do I get more of these people into the community to just strengthen, what we already have, this engagement in this wonderful space? So to me, my goal and my mission at Doug and Dynamics User Group right now is to get out and meet as many people as I can that don't know about the community and introduce them.
Mm-hmm.
And the and to at the end of the day to also help engage the people that are already here and find out what they need. What is it that we're missing? Like we talked about before with AI and what we could do with this new tool. How can we improve the community using this tool? What is it that you need from the community, and how can I provide that?
Okay. All right. So my next question is related to your community involvement because by looking at your career graph, we can easily see that you are this person who is deeply involved in community growth. So what do you think? Like why community is so important in IT industry, and what are some of the memorable community-driven successes you have witnessed or been a part of throughout your journey?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, we could write a book on these probably. It'd be a fun book to read. Just the opportunities that I've had, as I started my journey in community, it's, being able to make connections. I had a huge issue with my internal implementation in instance of AX at some point, and if it wasn't for community, I would have been in really bad shape. And so, just having those connections and not being afraid to lean on them
Mm-hmm.
was invaluable to me, which strengthened my resolve to build more of this. And then, personally, just it's the small wins. Like I mentioned, the Tulsa, being there and that being a catalyst, just because I was the ability to see me able to help right in the moment and to see other people start to synergize there as well and to create those connections. Um, was in Toronto last year and to be able to, meet a person for the first time and them to ask, gosh, I'm really looking for, somebody to help me with this.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to go back in my light bulb back to, it's like, switch gears to like, the Rolodex is like, cool, I think I know somebody. He's standing right over there. Let's go and make this introduction and to have that happen in the moment is electric. It's like that's what feeds me to do this, on the daily is like to see that and then the person to come up, three more times at the event and just like profusely thanking me for this opportunity. It's like, wow, I really needed this. I can't believe this happened. I'm going to be coming to these events forever now because of what just happened. That's magic. And I see this over and over again. We just got done with our event in Chicago, and there were so many people this was their first time attending an event like this, a community event like this, and just reading the excitement in their eyes and having
Mm.
them, repeat back to me again the wow factor of just I didn't know this existed. I'm forever going to be at these because of what I've learned and what I've gained out of this experience. It fuels me to keep doing this community
Yes.
thing. It's probably the first time, to be honest, I've had a job where every opportunity is just an energetic, happy, joyful moment. It's like there's nothing negative about building community. And so that to me is just a fun place to be at this stage in my career.
Correct. In fact, I am also agree with this point that community is something that will help you not only to interact with like-minded people, but
Hmm.
also to find out and to work collaboratively on a specific problem. And for sure, like if you are interacting with community members, then there is a chance of getting the solution in a much lesser time as compared to doing it individually, right? Because we all
Yep.
know that somewhere we all crosses the same path, we found the same kind of issues. So if one has find out the solution, then it's better to share that solution with others also, so that at least they will not waste time there. So that is a good thing about the community.
That's how Doug formed. Doug is Dynamics User Groups. It formed 30 years ago this year. So it was 30 years ago in 1995.
Okay.
A gentleman named Eric Ernst was implementing a BC
Mm-hmm.
at that time called Nav or Navision, and he needed help, and so he just created an online way to share ideas. Like, hey, I'm
Okay.
having trouble doing this. Has anybody else had this problem? And pretty soon that built into what we know as forums.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure other people are doing it at same times, but the idea of like I'm going through this. There are probably 10 other people that are going through the same thing. We should be sharing our experiences so we can learn from each other. We don't,
Correct.
nobody has to go through the same thing over and over again. And, we'll come together and build a brighter, better way to do this. So 100% agree with you there.
Okay. All right. So, Bobby, we all know that behind every successful person, there is a support of network, right? So, for you, who are those key people around you who helped you in your journey? Maybe they could be your family member, friend, and students, anyone like who have inspired you throughout your journey.
Yeah, it's interesting, being in a position now where I'm mentoring a lot through
Yes.
different, opportunities. I love doing that. I view any opportunity as a mentoring opportunity that goes both ways. Like you mentioned, it's not just me helping somebody, but I might learn if I'm open and my ears are wide, I'm going to
Correct.
learn as much from every person I talk to as they might learn from me. So I'm always in that mindset. And, growing up through my career, I never really thought about it in a formal way,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, Ahmed. I just kind of happened, I think, really quietly. My dad was, looking back, he never sat down and said, "Here's some lessons I'm going to teach you, son." It was more just watching him and hearing him, in
Yes.
the moment, helping to really build, I think, my core work ethic of, doing something and doing it right. But there are a couple people that, as I look back, because I've had this question before, I worked for a gentleman that owned a couple of businesses, and just watching him, how he silently operated to attain, the highest quality result for his businesses. He just didn't accept. It was just so deft in how he did it. He just always was observing, and he would drop in because he owned a lot of businesses. He would drop in on the business that I worked for, and he would talk about things that we talked about months ago.
Mm-hmm.
He just made notes in a quiet way and just always kind of had, an idea of what he wanted out of this. So I
Okay.
started learning from him just this way of cataloging and coming back to, making sure you didn't lose anything and looping back in the most important things that you wanted to have happen for whatever, opportunity it was you were working on. And probably the biggest, I think, as I look at my less career but just life arc, I was a terrible, I mean, I'm not say a terrible person with money. When I graduated high school, within I graduated at a time where credit cards were being given out like candy on the corner. I'm not
Okay.
even kidding. If you were walking down the mall, in the US, there were people giving out credit cards like without much thought. It's like I could just sign up with no, history, nothing. Just, yeah, here's a credit card. I was in pretty quickly in about $70,000 worth of debt by the time I was 19, 20 years old. And I was living and I was making good money. I always had a good job. I was making, really good money for my age, but I could not stay above water. And so I was constantly, you know, you know, bouncing checks. I just couldn't control this part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working at the time at an insurance company as an insurance agent.
Okay.
And the owner, one of the owners, there were two men, noticed that I was really stressed out. That he could tell that there was something going on. And he just asked me he called me in. He's like, I'm working on a Saturday. Why don't you come in and hang out? I want to talk to you. So I did. The owner tells you to come in. I went in and he just confronted me and he said, what's going on? And there was just like a bell cow moment of, I just let it out. It's like, here's where I am. And he's like, cool, I'm going to help you.
Okay.
And he just put it in a way to me that's like, I've got a couple options. I can go bankrupt, which I didn't want to do. My integrity told me that wasn't the right thing to do. I
Hmm.
put myself in this position. I shouldn't put this burden on the government or the people, or that lent me this money. It's like it didn't feel fair to me. If it had been a situation where I was doing well, but then I had an illness that put me in a bad shape, maybe I would consider that. It's like, okay, maybe that makes sense because this was not my fault, but this was my fault. I made bad decisions.
Okay.
And he helped me put it in a way that said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to help you through this. And boy, that was like a 180 turn for me in my life. And so if I had to look back, to your point, there's lots of little mentors. The folks I worked for at the apparel company were a great family-run organization. I learned a lot from them. And I just kind of I learned that because I didn't have a formal mentor, I was looking all the time for pieces of people, the best of the best of everybody I interacted with to kind of build my own personality around how I operate.
Okay. All right. So yeah, like if there are people like your friends, your family member around everyone, so they will not feel that kind of stress during the work if they have made some mistakes, so they have that chance to re-rectify the things and to be on the right track again. So that's really a good thing about the family and friend that they always help us, and everyone has their own ways in which they get the support from their family members as well, friend. So that's a good
Yeah.
thing. All right. So, yeah, thank you so much, Bobby, for joining us in this episode and for sharing so much information about your professional journey, your community contributions, and your personal life as well. So, it was really very nice talking with you. So, thank you once again.
Yeah, again, I appreciate being here with you and look forward to seeing you somewhere in the future.
Sure.